here, and he was looking for her. Maybe he'd figure if she responded positively to the email, he'd say something like, "Guess what, I'm actually in New York. Didn't want to tell you because I thought you might be thinking I was stalking you. Ha ha." And maybe it was as simple as all that. He was here in New York for some reason besides coming to find her and decided to send the email. All she had to do was tell him that she was still getting married and she'd never hear from him again. But another part of her was telling her that it was more serious than that he'd somehow fallen for her and now he was stalking her. What other word described it? Also, how had he gotten her email address? Even without her real name, he could have figured it out, right? Maybe he knew someone at the hotel who had procured it for him. Or maybe she'd said something to give away the identity of Bruce. He was a fairly public figure, after all. Either way, the fact that he now had her email address meant he knew her name, and she didn't know his. His email address was simply bluestreakwp@yahoo.com, which gave no indication of his identity, unlike hers, Abigail Baskin 90@gmail.com, which gave up not only her name, but the goddamn year of her birth. She Googled Blue Streak on the off chance she'd luck out, but there were too many things. A movie, a kind of fish, and several companies, even one in San Francisco, but it was for a catering place that looked as though it had gone out of business. She considered her options. Simply not answering him felt like the right thing, but somehow she knew he'd try again. Reluctantly, she decided to send a reply. Something as impersonal as she could make it, letting him know that his feelings were one-sided. She began to construct the email. Should it be dismissive? She didn't think so. The last thing she wanted to do was piss this guy off. The message should be nice, yet firm, unmistakably a brush-off. She also wanted the email to underplay what had happened between them in California, just in case someone else read it. There was no reason for her to confirm what had transpired. She grimaced to herself, realizing that she was acting like a criminal. She wrote, "Scotty, it was so nice meeting you. Yes, my wedding is still on. 3 days away, and I can't wait. Thanks for thinking of me, and take care." She read it over about 10 times, finally deciding that it struck the perfect middle ground between being nice and making sure that he got the message. She took out the "so," worried that it might sound a little too positive, and hit send. 12 hours later, there was no reply. She told herself that was the last she'd hear from the stranger she'd slept with on her bachelorette weekend.
"How many men have you slept with?"
"Excuse me?" she said. "That's none of your business."
"But it's part of what we're talking about, right?"
he asked, leaning back slightly, reaching for his glass of wine. They'd been talking about marriage, or more specifically, Abigail's upcoming marriage, 3 weeks away exactly, and how she could only admit to being 99% sure, 99.99 really, that she was doing the right thing. "It's not necessarily part of what we're talking about," she said, reaching for her own glass of wine, even though it was empty. He picked up the bottle to refill it.
"Well, that's like saying that sex isn't part of marriage,"
he said. "Have you met my parents?" she said. It was more of a joke than an actual observation. Her parents were separated, their version of a separation anyway, which meant that her dad had moved into the small studio apartment above the garage.
"My guess is you have very little idea about what your parents get up to or don't get up to in the bedroom."
He'd filled her glass too high, but the wine, a Pinot Noir, was delicious, and she took a long swallow. Slow down, she told herself, although she was also telling herself that it was a bachelorette party. It was her bachelorette party. And even though all her friends had disappeared somewhere in the haze of the previous hours, she was still entitled to drink some wine with the blue-eyed bearded guy wearing the vintage flannel shirt and the wedding ring. He was very Californian, she thought, with his bright white teeth and some kind of braided leather bracelet with a green stone.